Hi, my name's Hope Harrison, and I'm here to talk to you today about Mission Central. I thank you so much for inviting me to be able to speak with you. I'm sorry it's not in person, but I'm very excited to talk to you a little bit about the Spirit moving, which I know is your theme for the last few weeks. In Mission Central, we've seen the Spirit move time and time again, and so this is really a wonderful theme for us to be able to talk to about Mission Central with you. Mission Central's mission is connecting God's resources with human need, and we do that in any way possible. And so during this time, when we find that there's just this fear out there, we want to really rely on that unwavering power of God, that power that we have seen at Mission Central time and again. And so we think that Isaiah 41:10 is a really appropriate verse for this time, and I hope that you take some time and pray on that this morning. Talking to you a little bit about the Spirit moving, I always like to talk about the very beginning origin of Mission Central. You'll see on this screen a picture of an architectural drawing of a building. In 2001, Bishop Irons, who was our bishop at that time, put together a task force and wanted to get together an idea of a mission-based collection area. And so they were going to build a building that was 20,000 square feet. It was going to cost us $3.5 million. And they had just been right at the time that they were going to break ground. It was approved by annual conference. The task force was really excited to start. And the bishop had to take a different way to work one day. And he passed this building that had a for lease sign. And there was just something inside of him that said, all right, I need to go in and I need to check this place out. And so he sent his task force there. And they walked in and they saw a building much larger than they expected to get, but that was really exactly what they were looking for and was only a half a mile from the current conference center. And so they talked to the owners who only wanted to lease it and said, here's what we want to do with it. Here's our mission. Here's our goal. And the owners who only wanted to lease it said, okay, not only will we sell it to you, but we're also going to tithe back 10% of the price. And so we had this $2.5 million building that was 48,000 square feet, that was double the amount, $1 million less, and we got 10% back from the owners to start this wonderful mission. And we knew that there was a reason for this, and obviously it was the Spirit moving within the bishop and the Spirit moving within this mission. But what happens when you're planning on building a building is that you have several years to come up with your idea, how you're going to do warehousing, get equipment, all those kinds of things that you can do in a couple years. And we ended up getting a building in a couple weeks. And so we didn't have time to do that. So we had this basically empty warehouse with no items and no equipment, and we didn't quite know what we were going to do. And so the Spirit moved again and created in this situation another God moment, so we call them, where we started to realize that we were going to have more space than we wanted or needed. And so we were going to also offer low cost, no cost warehouse space to other nonprofits that otherwise wouldn't be able to exist with the excess space that we had. And so Bethesda Mission, which many of you have probably heard of before, needed warehouse space, didn't have warehouse space, but had equipment and knowledge. We had space, didn't have equipment and knowledge, and so it became this beautiful marriage in 2002 where they started and they came to our building and they've been there ever since. And what they do there is actually have their food bank ministry. So every month, approximately 230,000 pounds of food go out of our warehouse and go to about 200 plus community food banks. And so that was the second of so many examples of the Spirit moving within Mission Central. I always like to talk about some stories over the years of the Spirit moving, or God moments is what we call them, because I think it's really important, whether they're big or small, to address those and to talk a little bit about those so you can see how we know on a daily basis that God is calling us to continue the work that we do. And so you'll see a picture of suitcases here. Shortly after we opened, a man came and brought some suitcases to us. And he said, I saw your ad in the paper and I know that you're looking for suitcases. And we had never put an ad in the paper and we had never asked for suitcases. But we are of the mindset that when someone brings something to us and is adamant about it, that there's a reason for it. And so we took the suitcases And he came back again and said, I have some more suitcases for you. I'm going to bring them. And so he brought some more. And about the third time he came, he had amassed about 25 to 30 suitcases. We still did not know what we were going to do with them. And someone, shortly after he came for the third time, came and said, I'm going on a mission trip and we need one extra suitcase for every person that's going so that they can put supplies in it for the area where we're going to, and they can leave them there. And so ever since then, we started this ministry called our Suitcase Ministry that was started by one person doing something that he believed we asked for that we had never asked for. And that was really just something that has continued for 17 years. And we were able to continue that mission because of this man who, mind you, we never saw again. So we think that's a really cool story and another example of the Spirit moving in what we do. Tell you a little bit more about the things that we do. Shortly after we started, we partnered with UMCOR. UMCOR, as most of you know, is the United Methodist Committee on Relief, and that is the organization that is oftentimes the first in and last out when there's a disaster. And they have a number of specific kits, but they also do a lot of other disaster relief. And so we began our disaster relief efforts with them when we established this partnership shortly after we opened in 2002. We are one of 6 warehouses in the country that supply UMCOR, and we are both the largest in capacity and resource distribution to them. Just last year, we gave them over $1.3 million in supplies. And so you'll see on the screen a few of the kits that we supply to them. Cleaning buckets, school kits, hygiene kits, all of these things go into play when there's a weather-related disaster. And because of our partnership with UMCOR, we have been involved in every weather-related disaster since we opened. So things like Hurricane Katrina and all of those really impactful weather-related disasters, we've been able to be a part of that. Another God moment or another example of the Spirit moving is related to this baby scale. We actually had a call for a mechanical baby scale from a group that was going on a mission trip to Africa, and they were going to teach them about prenatal health and all of those kinds of things, but they needed one of these mechanical baby scales. And ironically, we had one. And so we said, yes, we have one for you. And they said, we need it tomorrow in New Jersey by noon for our plane to take off. And ironically, our executive director at that time was going to meet with his in-laws in New Jersey about 20 minutes from where the airport was and was able to get it to them. And they were able to take it and to do that kind of care that they were looking to do with their group. And to add another wrench or caveat to it, the person who had donated this had actually had it in the back of her car for several months. And she had driven around, she had driven around with it in the back of her car and kept thinking, I'm going to drop it off at Mission Central. I will get it there at some point. And the morning that she dropped it off, she had this tugging within her saying, all right, you have to take it today. You have to take it today. And so she dropped it off. And that was the day that we got the call from that group. And so we know that things like this happen because the Spirit moves within all of us. In 2006, Mission Central realized that many people in our conference were coming to volunteer with us, and we love that. But we also know that people were coming 2 and 3 and 4 hours to come volunteer with us. And so we had a brainstorming session, had a task force that decided that it would be really important to look at ways that we could have direct impact in communities that weren't Mechanicsburg. And so from that, our hub network or our mini Mission Central or satellite Mission Central network was established. And that was in early 2007. Since that time, those few that started in 2007 have expanded to 40. So you'll see that our northernmost is in Maine and our southernmost is in Central Virginia. And we are so proud of the work that they do there. And we hear about the Spirit moving in each of those on a regular basis. And we know that this is another way that God is allowing Mission Central to reach those out in the world. Yet another God moment or example of the Spirit moving is this wheelchair. You'll see it has off-road tires, and so it looks a little bit different than a normal wheelchair. We had a missionary who came and walked through our building and said, I'm looking for things to take back with me to my remote village in Africa. And so she was able to get a bunch of things that she needed. But she also asked for a specialized wheelchair with off-road tires for a young boy in her village who was immobile because they didn't have roads and he was unable to get anywhere. And so we unfortunately had to tell her we had never seen that before and we weren't able to give her one of those. But she was happy to have what we did have for her, and she had a really small car. So she took what she could that day and she said, I'll be back for the rest. And the day before she came, we got a call. We had someone bring in a wheelchair with off-road tires. So it was the exact thing that she needed that we had never seen before. And we were able to talk to her and say, we have the wheelchair you want. And she was able to take that back and give that small child mobility that he had never had before. So it's yet another example, and we have examples all the time of the way that the Spirit moves here at Mission Central. I'd like to talk a little bit about the programs that we do here, and one of our fastest growing and most important programs right now is medical. So we work with an organization called Project Cure to do a lot of international medical, but we also do a lot of localized medical. And so we gather all different kinds of medical equipment, anything that's really not a prescription, and we're able to give it to people who can't afford it. And I have a God moment related to medical that I think is just a phenomenal God moment. Most of you should recognize this as an MRI machine. In 2009, we were given an MRI machine by Radiologists Without Borders, which is the equivalent of Doctors Without Borders for radiologists. They asked us if we wanted it, and we said, yes, we will find a home for it, not realizing, one, it needed a constant source of electricity to it, and two, it was so large that the infrastructure in a lot of these countries that would need one couldn't hold it, and so their roads would just collapse under the weight of it. So we knew that the right thing would happen and the right time would come and the right person would come. And so we held on to it for a couple years. And a couple years after we got it, Central America had quite a bit of flooding. And the ambassador to Honduras came to Mission Central and wanted to walk through and see what he could find that could help them with their flooding. And he saw the MRI machine and he said, we need this in Honduras. And so we said, all right, then we're going to make it happen. And we worked with a number of volunteers to get it on a semi truck, and this wonderful company did all the permits and everything for us to get it to Miami, Florida, to the port. And then the ambassador was able to get it on a Chiquita banana boat, which seems ironic when you see the inside of our warehouse, and was able to get it to the port in Honduras. And ironically, 1 week before we were able to ship it, they had a ceremony, a ribbon cutting for a superhighway in Honduras. So there was actually just enough infrastructure to get it to the hospital. You'll see here some pictures of our staff and volunteers praying over both the truck, and they prayed over the MRI machine because we're big believers in that. And we're told that when it arrived in Honduras, you could still see the handprints on the MRI machine. So we know that God had a huge hand in this God moment in making this happen. Just a couple things that we have from the last year to talk about, and other things that our warehouse enables people to do. You'll see computers here. Over the last decade, we have been able to send out over 23,000 refurbished laptops and computers internationally and nationally to people who don't have access to computers, and we think that's really wonderful. In 2019, you'll see diapers here. Over $87,000 worth of diapers went to over 1,500 children who otherwise wouldn't be able to be diapered. And you'll see furniture and furnishings here. And in 2019, over $1 million worth of furnishings and furniture went out to local families, and we're able to help those who needed to furnish an area. Our 2019 report finally has been finished, and so I just wanted to highlight a few of the really important things with that as well. So every year we're able to resource out millions of dollars worth of resources internationally, locally, globally, all over to people in need. And so in 2019, we resourced over $7.8 million worth of resources out of our warehouse, and that affected 2.7 million people across the world. And so we're really proud of that. And we really are able to do it because we have so many wonderful volunteers. And I know there's a group from Aldersgate that comes on a regular basis, and we're so happy and grateful for you. Last year, we had 6,800 plus volunteers who worked over 20,000 hours for us. And that's the equivalent of over 10 full-time employees. So here at Mission Central, we have a pretty pretty small staff. We have about 5 full-time staff and 2 part-time. And without these wonderful volunteers, we would not be able to do what we do. So I thank you. And if you've never been to Mission Central, I ask you to come out, do a tour with us. You can volunteer with us and learn more about what we do. And again, it was $7.8 million in donated resources last year. So we're super proud of that. Lastly, a verse that I always like to do, no matter what the topic is really our mantra here. It's Matthew 25:40. I tell you the truth, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. And that is what we continue to do here at Mission Central. We try to be the hands and feet of Christ. And by being involved with us and being such generous supporters as a church of Mission Central, you are the hands and feet of Christ on a regular basis. And we thank you so incredibly much for that. If you are not familiar with us, I encourage you to go to our website. You can sign up for a weekly e-newsletter there. You can also find our social media, and there's lots of other information on there. And so I encourage you to just be in contact with us. You can reach out to me or any of my staff, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have or to bring you here for a tour. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this from home today.